All right, Garrett Johnston here with Xander Schauffele. And Xander, when I think about like some of your strengths, obviously playing well in majors is definitely one of them. There's a particular one where you were in the final group. Remember at the Open Championship, you finished second there at Birkdale 2018. What would you kind of learn about that experience?
I think it was Carnoustie.
Oh, you know what? That's right. Birkdale
Yeah.
was the year before.
Yeah,
Birkdale was your
Jordan
first.
won. Yep, Birkdale was my first one. Carnoustie, yeah, it was brutal. Jordan and I were paired in that final group, and I remember it very clear. We had got off to a really, really bad. You know, it's bad when you're competing in a final group with someone obviously friendly with Jordan, but we have a look at each other after 9 holes. We're like, we can do better than this. So.
Not acceptable, right?
It was tough. You know, the conditions were really hard. The course, Carnoustie was playing nasty, and it got the best of us on Sunday, unfortunately. But I kind of clawed my way back into the round a little bit. Was sort of back in touch after a really rough opening 9 holes, and then had that costly bogey on 17 there, and wasn't able to convert. I had a really good iron shot in the 16 actually, and then the rest is history. But was definitely really cool to be in the thick of things. It just feels different being in the thick of things at an Open Championship versus the other majors.
Now, how so? Why does it feel different?
Links golf is pretty cool. There's always one side you can really miss it on. So, at Augusta or certain major championships, it's a different feel. You can play into some trouble pretty easily on certain holes. Like aiming in corner 12, for example, there isn't much you can do on 12 if the wind picks up and swirls. I've seen best players in the world, hit both at 9 irons, and one comes up, 10, 15 yards short in the water, and one goes over the green, and you're just kind of sitting there looking at each other like, I don't know what the heck just happened. When you're playing overseas, it's blowing 25 miles an hour, and it's one direction. It's not swirling at all. It may change directions, but it's so strong. It's one direction, and there's always a side of fescue that you can kind of hit towards, and maybe that's a little bit comforting at times.
Doesn't sound very inviting to me, man.
Yeah,
I know
well,
Potter Harrington talks about sometimes you got to go through the trouble and believe it's going to come back with a win, I guess. Right?
Out there for sure. There's times where you aim at bunkers that are absolutely crossed out in your yardage book, and you just, like you said, you literally have to hit it. It's blowing so strong that, if you hit a draw with a right to left wind, it'll just go across, bounce, and go straight into the left rough. And so you almost have to hit it at the bunkers, try to hit a little fade, just so it doesn't hook that much. It's a pretty wild feeling.
Sounds stressful, man.
It can be, or you can have fun with it. Either way.
Speaking of having fun with it, links golf in general, the creativity, the challenge of it, what do you make of that? How do you embrace it?
Yeah, just everything you pretty much said. I mean, there is a challenge. You are able to be a little bit more creative. If you're not comfortable with a certain part of your game, you can kind of play to other strengths, whether it's I remember in the practice when I putted before it started raining at Carnoustie, I hit a putt from 100 yards to 6 feet on the 9th hole at Carnoustie. That's how fast it was playing. I wouldn't do that in a tournament, but you can always sort of bump shots or putt from 20 yards off the green if you're not super comfortable with sort of chipping. So there's certain ways to get creative that links allows for.
Right, and I jumped the gun on Royal Birkdale. Apologies. That was your first Open in 2017.
Yeah.
I think you went to Wimbledon. You did a bunch of things before
I
that,
did
or
not,
you had a lot of
I wanted to.
cultural experiences at least.
Yeah,
right?
I was able to hang out with my family overseas just prior. I was actually in Germany, visiting Germany for the first time. We were in Munich, and where my dad grew up, in Stuttgart. So it was a really cool experience for me to be over there prior to the tournament.
Right, and then just kind of wrapping up, I think about you and your partner in crime, Austin Kaiser, your caddy on the bag.
Yeah.
You've mentioned recently that you guys made a lot of mistakes your rookie year.
Mm-hmm.
You guys are kind of in those pro ranks together. Give us a couple stories, a couple fun examples of that.
Yeah, I mean, the mistakes were honestly made just from a nerve standpoint. I think it's easy to get stuff wrong when you're sort of kind of nervous about the moment, whether it's getting the wind wrong or kind of being anxious and not just taking a step back and just taking it for what it is. But there's been times where we got wind completely wrong on a hole where we're sitting there kind of arguing about it, and that'll still happen now. But as rookies, it's you make it a really big deal. He's never gotten a yardage wrong. I've gotten yardage wrong plenty of times.
But he likes to get yappy sometimes, though.
He can have a mouth, which I prefer. I actually tell him to speak up whenever he feels like I should be doing something different. But as rookies, we short-sighted ourselves a lot on holes where you just, if you look at our yardage books now or his yardage books now versus then, he's putting a big X in certain spots just because we know this is, Bay Hill here on a few holes. If you're above the hole, you'd rather be in the fairway, 30 yards short of the pin than being a foot in the rough over the green just because of how hard and fast it can play. So some small notes like that can really be game changing for your score.
Yeah. Well, you talk about course management. I mean, U.S. Open, you've got a really stellar U.S. Open record. I mean, you've got to be happy with your course management so far in that career.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, I think it's pretty obvious at U.S. Opens. Week to week, it's not as obvious. I think, Memphis is a really good example that comes to mind where actually short-siding yourself is the miss a lot of times. Playing to the fat side actually gives you like an up and over to a lot of pins versus if you actually short-side yourself on a lot of holes, you're actually just chipping straight up to the hole. It doesn't look correct, but it is kind of correct on property. I think that's what makes Memphis very difficult when it's playing hard. But yeah, U.S. Opens are pretty obvious. It's sort of like you have to hit the fairway. It's a bit of an execution contest. If you're in the rough, put it back in position and try and hit a really good wedge.
Yeah. And then just lastly, in terms of your major career, what do you feel like you can really hang your hat on, or what have you learned about your skills in majors that's really come across so well so far?
Yeah, just having a well-rounded game. I mean, it's my 8th year on tour, and I look at my body of work as just me gathering enough experience and becoming more and more comfortable towards getting the job done.
Appreciate it, Xander. Well, good luck the rest of the year at the majors in particular.
Cool, man.